Hey, coming up on the show today, we made a game. We're going to talk about it. The 5.2 SRD when we have an answer for you. New errata, return of Sage Advice, some interesting news about Baldur's Gate 3, Kickstarters. What's the ugly truth behind them? Also, we've got a couple of topics to talk about simplicity in game design. And like I said, we made a game. We're going to talk about it. This is Casual Friday.
Are you ready to get casual? Grab your favorite adult beverage or combustible plant and join us for our roundtable TTRPG discussion. Oh yeah, it's time for Casual Friday. And now, here are your hosts.
Hey, how you doing? We've made an effort lately to skip the intros at the beginning and get right into the stuff, but you might notice that one of us looks different today. Hey, Sean, thanks for joining us. How you doing?
I'm doing all right. Pretty good. It's snowy outside, but I live where it's snowy, so to be expected.
What are you gonna do? Anyway, so I'm Jim. That's Brad. No, he's over there. So let's talk about some stuff. Oh man, I don't have this queued up to share, but First, last week we talked about how me and Brad and Ryan made a one-page RPG. And so we are going to Brad, do you have the link for that? The link for it on DM's Guild?
Yeah, DriveThruRPG. Yeah.
So we could pop the link in the chat or something. But hey, we made a game. It's called UDARE, UDARE. It stands for the Universal D8 Rolling Engine. Don't worry about the A. Or you could call it the Universal Dice Resolution Engine. You could really use whatever words you want in that acronym, but UDARE is what it's called. It's based on Roll for Shoes. Sean, do you know what Roll for Shoes is?
I do not actually. I've never heard of that.
So Roll for Shoes is a micro TTRPG. It's by a guy named Ben Ray, and what it is to do anything you roll a d6, and if you meet or beat the number set by the GM, you succeed. And if you get a 6, you get to make a sub skill. Ooh. And it came from they were playing an improvised game. He was GMing and he didn't have any rules, so he was just making them up. And the guy said, "What kind of shoes do I have on?" And he said, "Roll for shoes." And he rolled a 6. And so he got to make a special skill about wearing shoes. Well, so we ran that for the Mimic Cafe like 3 months ago because I wrote this 5e adventure and I wanted to run it as a one shot for some friends of mine, but it's we were going to stream it and I didn't want to run it with 5e because I knew it would take like 5-6 hours to run the whole adventure. So I was like, what if I just take the adventure and kit bash it with some just made up rules? So what is happening here? Why are you showing my email?
Screenshot.
Please ignore that. I don't think there's anything terrible in there, but my business. What were you trying to share, Brad?
I was trying to share the UDARE page there.
Oh, I have to stop sharing and then you can
Gotcha.
I'll stop. Now you can share. Yeah, so we ran this one shot with these rules so we took the rules for Roll for Shoes and we added in an experience component. That is, if you fail a roll, you get 1 experience point, and then you can add that to rolls in the future. Because other than just creating skills, it felt like it would be nice to have a resource for the players to manage while they're playing. And so we took that and then expanded it to a D8, obviously, and built some rules around it, but it all fits on one page, and you can get it for free on DriveThruRPG. It is our gift to you. We made it. Hey, Will, welcome. Twin Steel, how you doing? We made it for you. It's called Universal because it is completely genre system agnostic. You could really use it to run absolutely anything because it just has it has simple rules for conflict resolution. It has simple rules for experience and character building, and a very simple section for the game master about how to set difficulty. And what else do you need?
Mm-hmm.
Sean, I know this is the first you're seeing it. Brad, do you have anything you want to chip in about creating UDare, or just this is the announcement part? We're gonna get more into it later.
Yeah, the only other thing I would say at this point is that when you download it, there's also character sheet pack that comes with like over 30 different sample character sheets across genres. So and there's 4 different character sheet samples for each genre. So when you're building your game, you can pick 2 genres, smash them together. You got 8 characters to choose from, and then you just made a setting. So pretty quick and easy way to get started.
Pretty cool.
I actually just went through and got it. I have it now through the store. I'm reading it right now.
I don't want to influence you, Sean, but leave a 5-star review.
Copy. Heard it. Heard, Chef.
We'll look at the full. We'll look at the full rules for that later. Let me go back to sharing my screen because I have the next thing that we are going to talk about on the entire screen. Just this. So the first news item, you might have heard this popular refrain lately. 5.2 SRD when has become the new Spelljammer confirmed over the last 3 or 4 months. 5.2 SRD when? April 22nd is the answer to that question. We just got a dump of information a couple of days ago from Wizards of the Coast. We're going to talk about some of the other things that they mentioned. It was a bit of a light news week aside from this. But so the SRD is coming and it is also in the Creative Commons. What are your guys' thoughts on the SRD finally getting here? Are you going to be making use of it? Are you going to be changing anything as a result of this?
I don't have any specific plans at this point. I was just kind of waiting to see what they were going to do. But yeah, it's nice to know that they delivered on their promise. It's a little late than they originally said. I think they were expecting it to be, well, they didn't give a specific date. They said like a couple of months after the Monster Manual comes out. So we're a little past that date, but it's not, in the ballpark. So I'm just glad that they did it. It's, delivering on their promise, which is, I think, important for Wizards of the Coast right now to rebuild their brand.
Yeah. On my end, I don't have anything that I like plan on doing. I assume that Shadow Dark falls under the SRD in some degree, correct? Kind of pulling certain resources.
Right.
I do think I've only played that recently, so that's probably the route that I would go through in order to do anything. I do have one question that I'm a little curious about because I remember a few weeks ago I saw that there was a group that was like running a Kickstarter to publish all of the current SRD information into like books that you could use to run like SRD content. Is that going to change at all now that that they have this new addition to the SRD and Creative Commons and all that?
That's interesting.
One thing it says that 5.1 SRD is not going away.
Mm-hmm.
So you can still use that. So if their Kickstarters using the older SRD, I don't think this directly affects me with anything right now. I've got some. I have a 5e product coming out very soon. I haven't announced it yet, but I don't. This doesn't really affect me because it was going on the DM's Guild anyway.
Yeah. Everything I put out is free, so I'm not overly concerned about licensed stuff at this point. But eventually I do want to start actually like charging money for my designs. But all my stuff that I put out to this point has all been free, including UDare that we just talked about. You should go get it.
Yeah, if you just joined us late, we put out a game. We're going to talk more about it later. We're going to actually show you the rules a little bit later and talk about it. And it's free. So yeah, I think the button on this story is just that they said they were going to do it and they did it, which is nice, which is, why didn't I have it ready to go? But where are you? Come on. For once, WotC's not stepping on a rake and they're delivering on what they said they were going to do, which, I'm proud of them.
That in and of itself is news.
Watsy does not step on rake breaking. All right, so the next thing that we are going to talk about is they just released new errata for the player's handbook. This is the second round. They released some when the PHP come out, September.
Around that time, yeah. I think it's September.
Yeah. So
September,
I think
November, and January. Maybe
that
February?
sounds about right. So the errata was like October, November. And like this already existed, the Goliath trait, saving throw got changed to ability check, grappler, poisoner, telekinetic. I'm pretty sure all three of these were already errataed. Speed halved, being changed to spending extra speed. So I think they are largely getting that speed being halved is mostly 2014 language that they have gotten rid of. This poisoner thing until you the little semantic argument against the rules lawyers. Telekinetic equipment, these were all existing. Now we get into some of the new stuff. Anywhere they've talked about shape changing, like animal shapes, polymorph shape change, true polymorph, they all have this qualifier about temporary hit points. That temporary hit points vanish if the spell ends, and equals to the form in which it shapeshifts. And then under shapeshifts, there's stuff about into the first form into which you shapeshift. I haven't really spent the mental energy to try to understand exactly what they're correcting there. And then the other ones, there are a few spells that got nerfed that needed it. Conjure Elemental, the upcast, all the 2d8 upcasts got nerfed to 1d8 and 2d12 to 1d12. Either guys know what they're fixing with this new stuff with shape change? All the new temporary hit point stuff they're fixing?
I haven't had a player play a druid yet, but I think I remember when I was first looking at the shape change ability for the new druid, that the way it's worded, like while you're using one wild shape ability, you can change shape to different animals. So like if I'm a druid and I turn into a bear while using that one wild shape, before that wild shape ends,
Okay.
I could shift it to a deer, right? And then shift it to, a fox.
Yeah, that's very different from 2014, right? It was
Right.
one animal per wild shape.
I think that the way it's worded, you can interpret it that way so that you can actually, only using one wild shape be different animals, right? Because you're not you're not getting as many benefits as you were in the 5th edition version. So it provides you some versatility if you read the rule that way. So I think this is compensating for that, so you're not shifting hit points every time you're
right
changing your animal form.
Okay, I didn't realize that. What do you think, Sean?
So pulling up the original printing, so wild shape can end if you go over a number of hours equal to half of your druid level, or until you use wild shape again, or are incapacitated or die. And so you can go from one to the other. I think it still uses another charge of your wild shape. But what I think they might be changing is how wild shape works now, which I didn't even realize until my friend who's playing a druid kind of pointed it out to me. When you wild shape, you don't take on the full statistics of the creature you're transforming into. You're taking over certain characteristics and then gaining hit points equal to whatever your level is or whatever the role is. That becomes your new HP pool for that wild shape. So it's no longer you go through all your health in the bear form and then you turn back into yourself at full HP. You're still burning through your hit points. You just get a bonus on top of it. So you still keep your old hit points. You just gain additional. So my guess is that's what they're changing or maybe editing, but maybe trying to keep it more in line with the wild shape ability for these other transformative spells.
Well, that's interesting because if you're hit by an attack that reduces your max HP, I think before in 2014, that wouldn't have affected your max HP. It would have affected the max HP of the creature you were wild shaped into. but now you have your HP plus temp, so it would affect your max HP.
Yes.
That's interesting. That's mostly a problem you face at higher levels. The undead and ghostly kind of attacks that reduce your max. There were a couple others. They've changed grappling. In grappling entry, the heading escaping grapple is now any grapple. Additionally, grappler can release the target at any time. They changed escaping to ending and hiding, which they biffed this one. They did not. They made changes to hiding in 2024, and they did not get it right. The second paragraph, you have the invisible condition is now you have the invisible condition while hidden. In the third paragraph, the condition ends on you is now you stop being hidden. Yeah, the idea of hiding conferring invisibility, it was just, I mean, I guess I understand mechanically why they do it that way, but it's just the wrong word.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
I saw a theory. I don't know how likely this is, but the theory kind of went that they might have wanted to implement a condition called hidden. And then, top-down design, somebody said something and they were like, actually, let's switch it to invisible. We already have something that is basically what you're looking for. Because the hidden action is disrupted by different things than disrupts invisibility. So all the while you have invisibility as a condition, it can still be disrupted by things that invisibility normally wouldn't be disrupted by. So it feels like its own condition, which is, I think, the right change. I don't know if this one goes far enough in changing that.
Preach. Yeah. And it's funny they've added grappling and hide, which are the two. I don't really play 2024. I'm playing in one campaign that's sort of quasi 2014 and 2024, and none of us really understand the grappling or the hiding rules. Like, I've looked at them and gone, okay, I kind of get it, but to fully get it, I need to spend minutes, or I've not been willing to do that. There's also some errata for the DMG that I haven't really looked over, and the monster manual. One thing that they've said is that now in the 2024 player's handbook, where is it? All the stat blocks and appendix B have been replaced with monster manual versions. Well, it would have been nice to have that in my actual book. Why couldn't they have done that? Would it have been a spoiler to put them in there? Because I understand something like this. It's like I can go in my book and cross out 2d8 and write 1d8. That's no big deal. But this is like a dozen pages that are completely wrong now. I don't like that at all.
Yeah, I have issues with the errata in general. I think it is inherently a good idea. I think it is something that is necessary. And because of online play being so pervasive, I think that it makes sense to put these changes in. And I assume they're changing them on D&D Beyond to reflect these changes. But as somebody who went through and purchased the day one prints, when I'm in the cabin in the woods playing with my friends, I'm not going to be able to Google up what is the change on this specific ruling because it seems weird. I'm just going to go with this. And it feels like it's just so strange to me to have this be such a huge change across the board in every regard, from spells to monsters to conditions, and then to look at these books and go, so why do I have these? Are these just fanfare for my shelf, or can I actually run 2024 with these books?
Well, the tinfoil hat says that they leave the mistakes in because this errata makes the digital purchases more attractive. But as someone who writes and publishes books, I can tell you that it doesn't matter how many times you have a book edited, there's going to be a typo or two slip through. It's like, doesn't matter how many times you shake it, the last drop lands in your underwear. It's just the fact of life. And so there's no way they were able to make these books perfect,
right.
Especially because it's not a piece of fiction that's just in the mind of a person. They have to, it's a conversation because they put this stuff out and, don't realize that sometimes it doesn't work, or that like Sean says, somebody up top said, we don't make a new condition. We already have invisible. Let's just use that. And they didn't think it all the way through about how that word would confuse players, because D&D players care about semantics. some of us care about it a lot. So you have to be careful the language you use in a book like this, because it can backfire on you. All right,
So-
the next thing. Oh, go ahead.
So were they just not done with the monster stat blocks? Is why they didn't put those in? That's weird.
I don't know, and it doesn't say exactly how they've been changed. I assume they're all probably minor tweaks.
Mhm.
I don't know. It doesn't list them all out. Yeah.
Well, one last thing on this: the changes to Conjure Elemental and Conjure, what was it, Conjure Fey, or the where they went from 2d8 down to 1d8 and 2d12 down to 1d12. Those,
all the conjures.
Those were definitely necessary because those spells were way overpowered when you were upgrading 2 dice per level. That was crazy, especially when you were stacking it with an ability that had multiple attacks, like stacking it on top of Magic Missile where you get 3 shots, or what's Scorching Ray where you get 3 shots.
Yeah, Scorching Ray.
Delivering a lot of damage that way.
Yeah. I didn't really appreciate Scorching Ray until I played Baldur's Gate 3, and then I was like, oh, it's like one of the best spells in the game. Also, it's fun at Baldur's Gate 3 because you go bam, 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 and they go like, blah, 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 blah. It's very cool to watch. We're going to talk a little more about Baldur's Gate 3 coming up in a minute. But moving on, unless I don't imagine Sean's done with his research.
No, I'm just comparing like a general stat block like the lion. I don't notice anything right out of the gate that is different. So my
Okay.
guess is there's probably like slight tweaks, as you said, and they just didn't want to include each one individually, probably to get people to either like it's already fixed on the digital copy or go get the monster manual and see what's been updated. So that's my guess.
Roger that. Moving on, it's not just errata that they've announced. Now they're also apparently bringing back Sage Advice. What does it say? I don't know a whole lot about this. Message Adjudicator, that's where Sage Advice comes in. Sage Advice Compendium collects questions and answers about rules, interactions in Dungeons and Dragons. For the release of the book, Sage Advice will be updated to encompass the new material present in these books. We continue to be updated. The current live date for the new Sage Advice Compendium hasn't been set in stone, but it's coming soon. Make sure to keep an eye on D&D Beyond for further updates. So it doesn't say, but I would imagine that Sage Advice is now just going to be a D&D Beyond blog. Because before it started as a blog, right? And then eventually moved into Jeremy Crawford's Twitter.
Right. Yeah.
Like, what? I don't know if that was the actual transition or if it just Sage Advice stopped and Jeremy Crawford just kept tweeting. I can't remember if he used to write it or not.
Yeah, I mean, he was the one answering the questions in the original blog, I think.
Okay.
Yeah. It's been Jeremy Crawford for a long time, so that is in and of itself is a big switch.
Yeah, so it will definitely not be Jeremy Crawford. Probably not. Maybe unless he works as a contractor. If he does, I hope he charges them twice what his salary was to do contract work. I worked at a company once, and we had a marketing guy who quit and started his own company, and then took on our company as his client and charged twice as much. And I was like, man, you're my hero. Charged them twice as much to do the same job he was doing when he worked for them. Anyway. That guy was cool. All right, so moving on, we don't really know anything else, but yeah, I would assume probably it's going to be a D&D Beyond blog. They're moving, I believe, let's check, dnd.wizards.com just redirects. Okay, that's interesting. Because there used to be, remember they switched over the store about 3 to 4 months ago? Maybe it was before the PHB, but before, when you'd go to D&D Beyond, when you'd go to the marketplace, if you wanted physical, it would bounce you to actually wizards.com and to a sub site. That's not the right word, but a site on wizards.com. And then it would bounce you back to D&D Beyond when you were done. But then they shifted the marketplace, and that's the point where they got rid of a la carte purchases, whenever that was. That's when they killed a la carte. They merged it. And I guess the old Wizards site is just gone now. It was dnd.wizards.com. You could still see some old blogs, out-of-date Adventures League info, stuff like that. But I guess that's just gone.
Yeah, there's a lot that has just disappeared from the history of D&D over the years because of doing things like that. Like, I know 4th edition players talk about all the forums that existed during 4th edition, and how like all that stuff's gone now. And there's online articles that used to be on older Wizards of the Coast websites that are gone now. It's just a lot of content that just gets lost. It'd be interesting if they had an archivist who could somehow curate all that into an interesting website or product.
Yeah, when they had the 2023 post OGL Apology Creator Summit, I remember after that, Teo Sabadia made a video talking about it. At that Creator Summit, he asked them about the archive of old blog posts because they had talked about moving at that. This is 2023, and they were talking about moving things over to D&D Beyond. And he was like, what's going to happen to that? Because like Brad said, it's not the first time they had deleted a bunch of old stuff and they didn't have an answer for him. And I think the answer probably is that stuff is just rotting away on a server somewhere with no access to it. And it will forever just be gone. So
yeah,
save a copy.
It's wild to the point that like growing up, especially, I heard all the time, be careful what you put online. Like, it's going to be there forever. And now seeing like these companies I grew up with, like Rooster Teeth was a huge inspiration for me. And the only reason that their content is now saved nowadays is because Bernie Burns came back and bought the company and transferred all of the hard drive data onto his own private servers. And I'm like, that information is just gone unless somebody makes the effort to save it. And it's not always a guarantee that that'll happen.
Yeah, Rooster Teeth was great. I really loved their Heroes and Half-Wits.
Yes.
To play. We're going to talk a little bit more about You Dare in just a little bit. We're going to show the rules and talk about it specifically. But thank you for downloading it. I hope you enjoy it. And I don't want to influence you, but leave a 5-star review. As an Amazon, I don't know how it works on DM Skill, but when you're an author on Amazon, you can get in a lot of trouble for influencing reviews. But people do it. People give away free stuff. There's ways around it. Anyway, so moving on away from the Wizards news to other tangentially related Dungeons and Dragons news, that this week, just a couple days ago, for Baldur's Gate 3, Larian put out the final patch 8, which is interesting because it's been almost a year since they said they weren't going to make anything else for it. That they weren't going to make Baldur's Gate 4, no DLC, and they were moving on to whatever. Well, they've put out multiple updates since then, and now a massive one in that they've released new subclasses for every class that's available in the game. I started a new playthrough this week, trying Giant Barbarian, Bladesinger Wizard, Swashbuckler Rogue, and Death Domain Cleric. And one nice thing about Baldur's Gate 3 is that I haven't played every D&D class at a table, but Baldur's Gate 3 has given me the chance to really experience exactly what it's like. I did a sorcerer playthrough. I've never played a sorcerer before, but I understand meta magic. Now, I got the experience of it. So I don't know. I just wanted to bring this up because I think it's great that they're still putting out stuff for it. I know Brad has never experienced Baldur's Gate 3, and I'm going to continue to be hard on him about that every chance I get. Sean, do you play with BG3?
I don't know if we've ever discussed it on here. Yes, I have. I don't like Baldur's Gate 3.
No way, really?
It is an incredible game from an incredible studio, and the story is amazing. I am bad at video games, and I constantly die when I play this game. So what I'm saying is I should be a IGN reviewer. But no, I am just the worst. And it like I want the easy mode for that kind of game because I'd love to just go through with the story. But you know, I'm a Halo player, I'm a Destiny player. I like the easy, like straightforward path. So something about it just didn't click with me, despite my whole other side of my personality being D&D.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's not for everybody, but I'm more like Nacho here, putting in the triple digit hours. And it just, you know, when there's no Dungeons and Dragons to play, it scratches the itch because it uses the 5e rules and in some places actually improves on them. I wish that WotC had paid more attention to Larian when they were making 2024. Because I think Larian was over here working on BG3, improving the things about 5e that didn't work. WotC was over here trying to improve the things that didn't work. I think Larian might have done it better.
I think you have a large group of people that would agree with you on that, Jim.
Yeah, Twin Steel, I'm romancing Karlach this way through. And boy, it's heartbreaking. But I think we're gonna make it. I believe in our relationship. I think we're gonna make it. This is interesting. BG3 breeds terrible D&D players. We could debate this, but I don't think we should. People say the same thing about Critical Role. Karlach is the best girl. Anyway, we got to stop talking about Baldur's Gate 3. So moving on, the next thing that we are going to talk about is that earlier, I guess it was a couple weeks ago, Luke from the DM's Lair is a YouTuber, and he put out a Kickstarter that was doing very well. And it was live for 4 or 5 days. He met his funding goal and was on track to actually do very well on the Kickstarter. But more than halfway or less than halfway through, he canceled the Kickstarter. And then just like a week or two ago, he put out a video explaining why he canceled his Kickstarter. And the video was called Exposing the Ugly Truth About Kickstarters. And the too long didn't read is that the ugly truth is that the Kickstarter financials are often very deceptive. Because he has the video, you don't need to watch the whole video, but because basically the video is this. He crunched the numbers on his Kickstarter, and he came to the realization that he would have to basically be wildly successful just to break even. And that was before, I think, at this point in the video, he was calculating a tariff based on, if you go on the yellow, 1.45. He did several models throughout the video of like, here's what it would look like with a 50% tariff, with a 104% tariff. And he was going to have to sell. It was going to have to be something like 300%, 400% of his sales goal just to not lose money. And we know that our absent co-host today, Ryan, has talked a lot about the dangers of Kickstarters. Sean, do you have any experience with Kickstarter? Have you ever run a Kickstarter? Do you have any experience with this?
I have not. In fact, only recently have I even engaged with Kickstarters, even like supporting them. It's a fairly new part of the hobby that I'm into.
Well, the thing is, I think it's good for us to talk about this. It's good for people to know about this because a lot of times creators, we're not MBAs. We are not people who have lots of experience with economics. We're just people who are excited about a product and we want to make money doing the thing we love, right?
Right.
And so you could get yourself, the moral of the story is you can get yourself in a lot of financial trouble if you don't know what you're doing. So, talk to people who do know what they're doing, instead of just putting this out there, because, one thing that they say, like when we talked about, the most recent Shadowdark Kickstarter and how it blew up and how it met the funding goal. And Ryan was like, you can set the funding goal to whatever you want. So like there's one gotcha right there. You could set the funding goal low, so if you blow past it, it makes it look more impressive.
Mm-hmm.
But if you set the funding goal low, but not high enough to cover your cost, and you don't make that much money, you're screwed. If you set the funding goal high, at least if you don't reach it, you're okay. You're only out what you've spent on marketing, right? And you're only out your time.
Yeah, well, and that's the intention behind the funding goal, right? Is so that you raise the funds before you spend the money, right? That's
right.
That's the whole intention. But yeah, but there's tactics you can use to, inflate your, not inflate, but kind of excite your audience, right? But that kind of stuff can get you in trouble. One thing that I would point out here is that this game Luke was making wasn't a role-playing game, right? It was a board game.
Mm.
And of course, board games, from the way I understand it, and from the way Stephen Glicker talked about it when he was talking about tariffs, board games have there's a lot more to it, because obviously you have all the pieces, and so you have cardboard pieces, and you have plastic pieces, and you have dice, and you don't get all of those usually from one company.
Right.
So you have multiple sources, making your product, versus like Shadowdark, like their main thing is it's just all books, right? So when you back the Shadowdark Kickstarter, you're getting one book, or you're getting 5 books, whatever, but it's all books. You're not having to source die cut cardboard and dice and plastic miniatures and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, and we actually have a news story coming up a little bit later in the show about the tariff differences between books and board games, and how that's potentially a hornet's nest. I don't know, any other thoughts about Kickstarters or the financials of being a creator?
I do have one question for the breakdown of this. Is I guess that's just my confusion on it. Did he go through the process of like calculating in the tariff cost, and that is what made him ultimately decide against it? Or was it the cost initially before tariffs was already shaky and it just got worse with tariffs?
In the video, he demonstrates with different tariff rates, and I think he starts with the current 10%, or whatever the standard tariff rate was before. And I believe it was shaky even without the tariff stuff, because he talked about that he spent 15 grand before even starting the Kickstarter, because he had spent thousands on advertising, and also he has a full-time employee who he, I guess, made the game with. And so he's like, the employees, I have to pay the employee, I have to pay for marketing. So he said he was planning to spend 10,000 more. But yeah, it's there on the graphic. 10,000 for ad spend, 8,000 for artwork. So I don't know if he just didn't get the math right until he started. I think that's what your question is. Yeah, I don't know. But sorry for his pain, but it is a valuable lesson. I'm glad that we get to see all this. I'm glad that he did all these numbers here, because it is scary to think about this new reality of shifting tariffs and shifting economics. We just don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah, Twin still mentions Nimble, right? That Kickstarter was already completed before all this tariff stuff hit, and they've got all the cards and dice and stuff like that. So, and that's a great game. I'm excited to play Nimble. So, good luck to you guys. I hope you guys can get all that sorted and the tariff thing doesn't screw everything up.
Yeah, Twin Steel, there's a video by Stephen Glicker from Roll for Combat where he talks about the tariffs, where he talks about paying fees on things at the docks, or else they might be destroyed. So I don't know if you're grandfathered in because of the timing, but it might be worth seeking out that video, because if stuff, they pull it off the ship and they go, all right, pay us $8,000 or we're gonna throw all your stuff in the incinerator. That's pretty terrifying. Kickstarter's shipping international stuff is not great. I've heard that from people living not in the US before. All right, so I suppose we should move on now to the next thing coming up on the show. The next thing coming up on the show is, hey, I want to talk to you real quick. Are you subscribed to the Landlocked Warlocks? Are you sure? Think about it. Look down, and if you're not, if there's a little button that says subscribe, see Sean is looking right now. You see, Sean checked. We just got a whole scene acted out by Sean right there. He was like, oh, yes. Yeah.
That's why Sean gets to be on the show.
Checks in the mail. Thanks.
Good mime work. Excellent mime work there. So subscribe to us, tell your friends. I don't know if you saw last week, but me and Brad and Ryan did something pretty fun we called Casual Friday Theater, where I had put together about 45 minutes of classic D&D material, and we riffed on it like Mystery Science Theater. It was very fun. I'm also making a best of compilation that I'll be releasing on my channel for that coming up. Speaking of things that are coming up for all of us, now's the time of the show that we call a catch up, where we say hey and tell you what we're working on. Sean, why don't you tell us who you are, what you're all about, what you're working on? Promo something for us.
Yeah, so my name is Sean. I'm at The Delver on YouTube. Not the video game, I want to be clarified. And my channel focuses primarily on, GM advice as well as history of the hobby, stuff like that. The thing I'm working on right now is the Dragon Week video. Outside of that, not a damn thing. Probably should be, but no, that's pretty much all I got going on right now.
I definitely enjoy your history of D&D content for sure. That's a great addition to the hobby. I think just having somebody tracking all those things from from bygone days.
I think it's important to keep it up. And actually, fun fact, I don't think I've ever talked about it on the channel. My fiance Caitlin, her mother grew up in a little town in Wisconsin known as Lake Geneva, and went to school with the Gygax kids. Didn't really know them, but they went to school at the same time, and she still has family living out there. And so I'm thinking about kind of incorporating that into a video in the future.
That's cool. Yeah, I'm with Sean on this. I'm currently in the middle of my Dragon Week video. I guess everybody now knows that next week is Dragon Week, so that video will be coming out Monday or Tuesday, depending on powers that be in charge of the event. And other than that, I've been working on UDare. So that was what I was doing up until this week, was doing the character pack for UDare. That was fun.
We're going to talk about that in just a minute. What I've got going on, I've got a video coming out on Sunday about that errata. I was going to do something else, and then the errata came out, and I was completely flipped up my plans and made a different video. My Dragon Week video is coming next Wednesday, and it is about how to run a dragon as your BBEG. So I talk about general villain stuff, and then I talk about several of the different dragon types and the kind of plots that those dragons might be interested in. So I'm pretty excited about that. It was probably the most editing intensive video I've ever done, so you guys better like it, because I spent a lot of time on it.
It sounds like our Dragon Week videos will go hand in hand, because I'm focused on world building around the dragon's impact. So taking the regional effects and extrapolating those out into how it affects the society of the people who live around the dragon.
Oh wow.
So kind of a geopolitical kind of take on the dragon's regional effects.
That's really cool.
Cool.
mine is real simple. I'm basically going to the origins of dragons. So I'm taking D&D dragons, and then I'm moving back to Smaug because that's who the primary inspiration was. And then who was Smaug's inspiration? We're talking about Fafnir from Sigurd the Volsung. And I just bought that from Joanne Fabrics because they're going out of business. So I will be editing myself into any media I can find that is relevant.
I used
Fun
to
with
use a
green
green screen.
screens.
Yeah, the lighting is tricky, but once you nail the lighting, they're easy.
That's why I got these bad boys right here. Actually, if I turn these off, that's what that's what the room looks like.
I'm really trying to get better at the bright foreground, dark background thing. It's not the right time of day, but that's my next lighting goal to tackle, is to learn how to do that. Anyway, moving on. You guys don't care about how we light ourselves here. You just want to hear about the D and the D. So moving on, we get to our creator corner / mid-show thing. And in a segment that Brad has titled The Cost of Crunch. So when we were designing You Dare, we have a Discord channel where we were talking about game design, and so we started with the basis of Roll for Shoes and with the additions I added from Mimic Cafe. From there, we all spitballed and added in our own things. And what we quickly found was that we all had too many good ideas, and we kept wanting to add in rules to where one of us, me, had to step in and say, okay, we have, remember, we have to fit it on one page, because that's the beauty of a one-page rule system, is that if it's a page and a half long, you failed. You didn't meet the assignment. And so working within those boundaries, you have to only include what's extremely important. Word choice and word economy is incredibly important. And so there's a point at which a game simplicity makes it easy to learn and easy to run, but also easy to get tired of. Versus a game that's crunchier and more complex, that is harder to learn, harder to get into, but also harder to get sick of, because you could do more things with complex rules than you can with a simple rule set over time, right? Like normalized for a certain number of sessions. So, Brad, do you want to say what you were thinking with this topic, and then maybe we could show You Dare?
Yeah. So one of the things, though, like Jim was saying, like there's an advantage to making your game more complex because it gives you more facets to the game, right? So people are going to tire of the game less quickly, right? But the other aspect of it is the more complexity you add and the more options you bring to the table, the longer the game takes, right? Whether it's player options, so character creation can take forever. Like think about 3.5 character creation, or if it's combat, like again, take a look at 3.5 combat. But even 2024 combat, right, is it's not as fast and as fluid as 2014 combat, right? And we've seen 5th edition combat get more complex as the game has grown. Like when I first broke out 2014 and we're just playing straight out of the player's handbook, I was like, this is great. It's so much faster, so much more streamlined. But over the course of the edition, over 10 years of edition, right, you have far more class and subclass design making use of bonus actions and reactions. And then, so over the course of the edition, right, the speed of combat in 5th edition gets slower, right? And now we're at 5.5 where we're doing even more with bonus actions. And now you got weapon specialization added in there too. So there's like a cost to the crunch. Like the crunch can make the game interesting and tactical and all of those things, but it also slows the game down, right? And that's one of the things I noticed when we started playing all these one-page one-shots, was like how fast you could resolve a scene, right? Whether it's combat or role play, whatever it was, scenes resolved super quickly because it would boil down to just, one, maybe 3 dice rolls, right? The other thing too is in the wargaming hobby, Malifaux. I don't know if anybody here is familiar with the Malifaux game. They just announced a 4th edition. And it's like a kind of weird West skirmish game. But they use what's called a fate deck. So instead of dice for combat resolution, you're using a deck of cards. But then you also draw a hand of cards at the beginning of the game. So you can interrupt your card draw with a card from your hand, it's a clever, interesting system, and it makes for a nuanced and tactical combat. But over the course of 3rd edition and 4th edition Malifaux, they're trying to find ways to speed up the game. But essentially, this mechanic, this fate deck mechanic that makes the game unique from a lot of other games, is the core problem with how long the game takes, right? So it's just, and that's just a cost benefit. So when you're designing a game, that's always a cost benefit conversation to have, is how fast do we want our game to play? But then how many options and how many, tactical choices do we want to be able to make, right? So it's trying to strike that balance between speed and crunch.
Sean, thoughts?
A lot. I agree with the observation 100%. I think that, like, for me, I at my core, I am a man of extremes, and in that way, I really like a simple game. To the point that, like, we are playing in a Dungeon World campaign, and I have run Dungeon World before, but that is a game that you need to kind of reference the book fairly often to know, like, what you're doing and what you're rolling. I told my GM, I said, hey, I've run this before, but I'm going to be honest, I don't remember much of it. I'm not going to look at the rules. I'm going to look at my character sheet, and I'm going to leave it entirely in your hands to facilitate the system, because I know once I start looking into it, I'm going to start looking at it like a system, and I'm going to start playing it like a system. And that's kind of the joy I've had in trying out. We do this thing called Playquesters where we try different systems, and I really like the simpler systems because there's no way to game it. There's no way to, you get a lot of focus out of it, but if you're living in that world, that becomes what you're looking forward to every week. And if you're just kind of leaving the mechanics in the hand of the person facilitating, it becomes more exciting for me as a player. And as a DM, it allows me to kind of be a little more loose and fast. Like, we ran Shadow Dark recently, and it was my first time ever running it. I just kind of busted out the quick start guide, and it was a level of simplicity that I really valued. Like, I was sitting there for a moment. I was like, oh, what's this skill? And I was like, wait, there's no skill. There's just, oh yeah, it's just the attributes. Let me just roll wisdom. And I was like, that resolved it so quickly. I think our combat took 10 minutes, and it was like 2 rounds of combat. And I was like, that is insane. I would never expect that from 5e. And coming from someone who ran multiple months of 20th level D&D at the end of that campaign, that was like 3-hour combats each.
Yeah. About a year ago, maybe 2 years ago, Matt Colville put out a video. It was when he had first started. He had his running the game series for a long time, when he first started his designing the game series, which I think was on the MCDM channel, not his personal channel. But anyway, in one of those design videos, he talked about they're fascinating because he talked about the process of designing Drawsteel before it was called that. And in one of the videos, he talked about how they wanted to get rid of the 2-hit roll. He talks about the 2-hit roll for a long time. But it's fascinating because they wanted to get rid of the 2-hit roll. So they just got rid of it and said, attacks just hit. And players love not having to roll dice, but after a little while, they realized they missed crits, and they didn't like that the monsters always hit them. They didn't like that. So they were working on some other systems, and they came up with a system where you don't roll to hit. You just roll the damage dice, and the damage dice have a 3x3 chart that determines, based on the number of the damage you roll, extra thing it does. And at that point, I'm like, why not just leave into hit? Because it does what it's supposed to do. You don't need to design a complex 3x3 chart to determine what happens. Roll, add up the number, consult the chart, implement the effect. At that point, it would have been faster to roll to hit. Because rolling to hit, people get it, right? I roll this die, I read that, and I add a number to it, and then I tell you. And that's pretty much the workflow, right? Things are different when you're like 17th level or 20th level and you roll to hit and you're missed. Like, do I have anything that can change that? That's what takes forever when you're high level, because every time you roll and you don't like the result, you go, what can I do to change that? And everybody has things they could do to manipulate the dice. That's why D&D takes forever when you're high level. That and reactions.
Yeah, well, and
go ahead.
And Nimble does that. Like, Nimble does away with the 2 hit, but Nimble, you can still crit with your damage, right? If you roll max damage, it's considered a crit. And then you have like a defensive stat that allows you to avoid getting hit, right? So I think Nimble handles that really well, where they actually are able to do away with the 2 hit roll, but you still have offensive crits and defensive capabilities to not get hit.
Yeah, Nimble does interesting stuff with the position of the dice, which is pretty cool. Go ahead, Sean.
I was gonna say, when I ran Shadow Dark, one of the first things that happened in combat is like our players got into combat with goblins, and then I said the goblins are going to try to run past you because they failed their morale check, and then I went to walk away, and they said, "What about an opportunity attack?" And I was like, "Oh, what about opportunity attacks?" Looked it up; they don't exist, and that was just a moment of like, oh, I was like, I don't have to like wait for someone to consider to use it, and that sped up combat overwhelmingly, and I didn't even realize that was something that was slowing it down until it was gone.
Reactions.
Yeah.
And like Brad said, in 2024, are they giving you more things to do with your reactions, right?
No.
And that's one of the reasons why low-level D&D is so much faster, because you don't really have much you can do with your reaction at level 2 and level 4, right? There's not a whole lot you can do.
Yep. Well, and that goes back to what I was talking about with that Malifaux game, right? Like, you can make a game based on a card deck, and it doesn't take any longer to play than a dice game, right? But once Malifaux adds that player hand, where you have a hand of cards and you can interject cards from your hand, now there's an interrupt to the game, right? And it feels cool, right? Because you're cheating fate at that point. Like, it fits the narrative of the game, like the story behind the game. But at the same time, it slows down the game too. So again, that's that cost benefit analysis when you're designing.
Yeah. When I had when I ran like Battlemaster Fighters in D&D, which is like my go-to class and subclass, their entire thing is built around reactionary play. It's, I'm going to parry, or I'm going to riposte, or I'm going to, use this ability to get you to move half your movement speed without provoking opportunity, which in and of itself is a reaction on the other part. Like, it's all of this different stuff, but I love that gameplay. But as a DM and even as a player, sometimes when it's getting to be like 20, 30 minutes before getting to my turn, I'm like, I don't know if that's for me.
Yeah, the high level D&D game that I play in, we're 18th level, and combats generally take 30 to 45 minutes per round. So a 3-round combat will be like the session.
Yep.
And we have had combats stretch across multiple. The longest we had a 10-hour combat across 3 sessions. That was crazy. I think the Dungeon Master afterwards realized that he had erred. He had bitten off more than he could chew by having us face like an entire drow army. There were like 80 of them, and then ever since then he's gone to more like this one token represents 10. It's a lot easier to deal with those sorts of numbers. But anyway, hey, we're kind of running out of time, and we did promise that we would show you Udare. So why don't we do that? Let me go ahead and flip over to here. This is the Universal Dice rolling engine, or the Universal D8 Resolution Excellency, or the unbelievably what's a good word that starts with D? Unbelievably dapper agency reveal. I don't know. Okay. Anyway, the Universal D8 rolling engine. It's real simple. The conflict resolution to accomplish anything within reason. We had to put in a few little things like that for the rules lawyers. To accomplish anything within reason, roll 1d8. You cannot shoot the moon. If you meet or beat the difficulty number set by the GM, you succeed. If you roll an 8 or all 8s if rolling multiple dice, you can create a related skill and thereafter roll 2d8 for that skill. Say you want to pick the lock on a door. So you roll 1d8. You get an 8. Now you write in a specialized skill called lock picking. And then anytime you want to lock pick again in the future, you roll 2d8 and you keep the high number. And if there's combat, the GM will roll for the NPCs. Combat or any kind of contested roll, or a contested roll among the players. It will just contested D8 checks. Experience. For every roll you fail, you get 1 XP. XP can be spent to add to rolls to turn failure into success. And if you succeed a difficulty 8 roll, you get 2 XP just for succeeding that. You can spend 8 XP to create a new skill. During downtime, you can burn or delete 2 skills to make a single 3d8 skill. Mike, you can get these rules for free on DriveThruRPG. And we might also put it up on itch.io, but we're doing the best we can. It took us days to coordinate the DriveThruRPG account. So itch.io coming in the future. Yeah, so the idea here, let me read through the rest of the rules and then we'll talk a little bit about why we designed things the way we did. And for the GMs, most things players want to accomplish will be a moderate difficulty. That gives them a 50% failure rate as the base. Hard is for actions with a high degree of failure. You can also sparingly set a very hard or Udare difficulty or disallow rolls for impossible actions. There's a little more of that rules lawyering there at the end. When attempting a Udare difficulty, everyone at the table should shout, "Udare!" They don't have to do what they should. When a player rolls an 8, creates a new skill, work with the new player to make the skill relevant and reasonable. We discovered that. Actually, let me keep going. I'm breaking my promise. PCs start with 1 XP and 2 skills. So when you design your character, you can give yourself a couple things to be good at and name, backstory, gear, powers, all that other stuff, depending on if your GM wants to fiddle with that or not. Merle the Oathsworn Gnome Holy Warrior. Skills, swords, 2d8. Intimidation, 2d8. So some notes on some of these things here. So it's mostly designed for one-shots, right? But we did want to include some playability for what a quasi-campaign. And so that's what this is. During downtime, you can burn skills to make a more powerful skill. Because one of the things that we talk about when we get together to talk about game design, one of the things we talk about is finding the essence of a game, finding the heart of a game. Like, what is the core fun thing about the game? Like, what's the core fun thing about Monopoly, the game? It's empire building, right? That's what's I mean, Monopoly's not fun, but it's like the reason why it's sold so many copies is because the empire building is attractive. That's the core essence of the game, right? So when we were doing the Mimic Cafe, when I was running the Mimic Cafe and we were using the prototype version of this, what we found was the essence of the game, the core part of the game was making new skills. That was really the fun part. Because what that meant was that you would discover your character as you went. Like, you don't know what you're good at until you try something. Like Ryan's character, he threw a knife, he rolled an 8 and he got an 8. So he is now a knife expert. And so going forward, like, he started role-playing his character that way. And so that's what the idea behind the game is basically it's an engine for skill creation. It's an engine for you to create a character, and it could be used as like as a meat grinder, as a level 0 way to create some characters. Like maybe you don't know you're a knife guy until you go through this gauntlet and that knife guy character survives. Also some other things like this, work with a new player to make the skill relevant and reasonable. We did that during the session. Be like, I think there was one time Brad rolled the high number and he got to make a new skill, and I was like, okay, create this skill. And Brad goes, well, could I make this instead? You like worded it differently. And so we want there to be like a back and forth, like a give and take, and that it's not just like the DM says your skill has to be this, or the player goes rogue, that they should work together. I've been talking for a while. Brad, do you have anything you want to chip in here about our creation?
Yeah, so like that example you were talking about, it was, I forget what you suggested, like casting. I think I rolled to cast the demon out of the NPC, and you had suggested like, exorcism skill or something like that, and I said, well, can it just be demonology? Like I have an understanding of just demons in general, and by making that suggestion, I was able to roll using that skill multiple times throughout the rest of the adventure, because just general knowledge of demons applied to both combat and non-combat stuff. Where if I had just chosen exorcism, I would have been kind of pigeonholed into just casting out demons with that skill.
So you were getting to shape the character the way you wanted to.
Right. Yeah. So, and I was kind of playing like an Avatar: The Last Airbender kind of monk, but a dwarf with a really bad accent. But yeah, and so I don't know, demonologies kind of fit that kind of monk aesthetic, I guess, in my brain. But yeah, so you can customize your character as you go, which is kind of the fun aspect of this game. The other thing is, is also, I think we incorporated it into the name, the whole like the dare thing, the fact that mathematically, like if there's any part of this system you can game, it's knowing that if you're only rolling 1d8, you have a much better likelihood of getting an 8 than you do rolling 2d8 getting 2d8s, right? Or rolling 2 8s, right? So it encourages you to try new things, right? And so that kind of fits kind of the essence of this game, is we want the gameplay to be like daring to do something new, trying new things. And then that's where we came up with the you dare mechanic for when you want to do something ridiculous, which is basically like you're kind of betting on yourself to be able to pull this stunt off. And if you do, you get 2 extra experience points for it.
Right. We've got a rules question here. Let me clear up. So there is no, I know you corrected Captain there to cap. There is no cap. The way it works is like with that demonology thing. So Brad rolled 1d8, got an 8, and so he got to create a skill called demonology. Then the next time Brad attempts demonology, if he rolls 2d8 and gets both 8s, or gets 2 8s, now he can create a sub skill of demonology for 3d8. So it'd be something related to demonology, but more specific, like exorcism, like whatever he was attempting to do would be the 3d8 skill. But it's unlikely that you're probably going to roll 2d8 on your roll all 8s. I mean, it can happen, of course, natural 20s always happen, but 2d8 is not the cap, but it just gets less and less likely that you're going to create a skill with 3d8, 4d8, that kind of thing.
Yeah. Well, and again, depending on how you manage, and this is one little nuance I noticed when I was kind of playing with the math and rolling dice, is how you play with or how you use your experience points, right? If you stock up your experience points and you wait until you roll 2d8 and one of them's an 8, then you probably have enough experience points to turn one of your dice into an 8. So now you have 2d8. Now you just upgraded your skill to a 3d8, right? Or you get a new skill at 3d8, right? So you can play that way. if you're trying to make your character an expert at something, kind of hoard that experience and then wait till you roll an 8 on 2d8.
And part
You-
of
or
Go
you can
ahead,
just
sorry.
make sure you always succeed at stuff by using up your experience that way, and then you end up with multiple 2d8 skills, right? So there is some influence of how you create your character by how you manage your experience points.
And we, had to make decisions about how specific we could get with the rules because, as you can see, there's only about 200 total words on this page. So we had to be judicious and we had to leave out things like, well, what happens if you get you're rolling 2d8, you get an 8 on one and a 4 on the other? Can you spend experience points on the 4? Or does the experience points only count on the highest rolling die? We're going to let you GMs figure that out at the table if it comes up, because we don't have room here to explain that. And also, if we did turn it into a 2-pager, would it really be worth it to add in that extra explanation? Like when I worked in the software industry, we used to talk about edge cases all the time. And that the dev team doesn't want to fix things that only happen to a very, very small percentage of users. They call it edge cases. So, and I think D&D designers can fall into that same trap where we feel like we have to explain away every single edge case. Well, what if this happens? Well, what if this happens? We need to be able to explain that too. And if it breaks the game, yes. But, when you have one page to fit your entire game on, you have to let the edge cases settle themselves out as they may. Now, Sean, you've been sitting there a while. Do you have any thoughts on this?
Yeah, I like it at its core. It incorporates something that I really like about what my friend is running. Oh my goodness, I forget its name right now. Crooked Moon, which is a 5e supplement. And one of the cool things they have is they have a background or an ancestry or something that is like amnesiac. And the cool thing about that is as you're going through, say you get to a point and you need to make a roll for survival, you decide in that moment that's one of your skills and you put it in and then you get the bonus. I like this one though because it makes it based on the player's actual play style rather than what they are wanting to get benefit for. And this gets it kind of creates a little bit more I don't even know, like a natural or like emergent character design that I'm a huge fan of. I love stuff that comes out of gameplay rather than putting it into gameplay.
Yeah,
It's
and
almost
that was the intention behind this. It was kind of like that's what we had fun doing when we played our tweaked version of Roll for Shoes, and then we doubled down on that with this.
Yeah, it's really good. Genuinely, I might be running this sometime in the near future because I've always loved the idea of running and I know that there are games that work like this, but like I would love to do like a Saving Private Ryan World War II type of one shot, and this is something that I would absolutely see appearing in that.
Yeah, I mean, you could use it to run anything, really. Really just about anything. If someone out there finds something that they can't run UDare with, we'll refund your money. But I mean, I can't think of anything you can't, you probably can't run a 30-session campaign with it. You could, but you'd probably get boring after 4 or 5 sessions. And you have to gonna add in rules for items and that kind of stuff and add in rules for monsters and items and that kind of thing if you did want to turn it. And at that point, it's not a 1-pager anymore. So you might as well be running something else. But, like with Mimic Cafe, it was just in a pinch. I was like, I want to run this game, but I don't want to run it with the system. And so a system like this that's universal, you could run anything. You could run Curse of Strahd with UDare. I probably wouldn't, though.
But check out the character pack too, because like I said, like Sean, if you want to do like a Band of Brothers kind of thing, or there's in the character pack there is a Grimdark character pack that gives you 4 characters, that includes like the Brawler, and then there's the Modern character pack, right? So if you want to do that kind of World War II, you could take the Grimdark character pack and the modern character pack and put those two together, that gives you 8 characters to choose from, right?
Mhm.
And that that can help get your players started. And so my intention with that is that by having all those character packs there, be a fast and easy way to get started, but also a fast and easy way to choose a setting as a game master. So you can look at any of these. Like if you want to run like a comic book adventure, you could take the superhero and the cyberpunk, put those two together. That gives you 8 characters that you can run a superhero game with.
Mhm.
And they're just all samples, though. You can all you need to know about how to create a character is right here on the sheet.
Yep.
But yeah, the sample character sheets are just there if you want to print something out, or if you want to do pre-mades, pre-made characters. It'll take you about 3 minutes to whip up half a dozen of them, I think. Hey guys, you know what? I'm thinking that we should call it and just leave off the rest of the topics for another time. We were just going to talk about tariffs, and it was just going to be a bummer anyway. Yeah, all you need to know is that they're bad. And who knows? The situation could be completely different by next show.
Right. That's the only thing I was going to say. Is like all you need to know is that they're bad and they're constantly in flux. So they might, anything we
Next
say
week.
now could be irrelevant next week, or it could be far worse next week. Who knows?
Next week they'll either be better, the same, or worse, and that's a promise. All right, hey Sean, why don't you tell the people where they can find you?
Yeah, you can find me at the Delver on YouTube. Actually, the most recent video we have is actually of Caitlin talking about creation myths in D&D and just in general. That's kind of one of her backgrounds in anthropology. So go watch that.
Cool. Well, I'm Jim. That's Brad, and we're gonna get on out of here, and we'll see you next week. Go download You Dare from Drive Through RPG and leave us a review. Thanks. We'll see you.